Welcome to the Latin MedTech Leaders Podcast, a conversations with leaders who have succeeded or plan to succeed in Latin America. Please subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, etc. Today, our guest is Mauricio Berdugo, MD, MPH. Mauricio is currently the Director of Medical Affairs at Humacyte. And I hope I'm pronouncing this right. And he has worked in different capacities within the CRO, pharma, diagnostics, and biotech industries in the United States and globally, including Latin America, Europe, and Asia for the past 9, 10 years. So, Mauricio, it's great to have you here in the show. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Excellent, Mauricio. So I'm looking forward to this conversation today. You are originally from Central America, and I'm very curious about your journey. Tell us about your journey to where you are today and your journey to Latin America.
Well, interestingly enough, my journey started in the United States. I was raised in the United States, but I had the opportunity to go to El Salvador for medical school, and which was a phenomenal experience for me, learning a little bit more about my own culture. Where my ancestors came from, my family came from. I was actually born there but raised in the United States. But the important thing is that I got to know what the healthcare situation is outside of the United States, which is something that I'm very foreign to. So it was not only a culture shock, should I say, from an American kid to go to his country of origin, but to learn how things work politically and in the healthcare industry uh, outside of the United States. So after graduation from medical school, I came back to the United States and I started working in different clinical positions. But eventually, I decided to embark an academic journey in healthcare, principally in pulmonary, cardiovascular, and spine surgery research, which brought me to this industry, and that's when I started to grow within the therapeutic areas that I now and have worked with in the past. So it's been a pretty long journey. It's been a very interesting journey, and maybe to answer your question about how I got involved in the Latin America side of things was once I got into the diagnostic space. That's really where I had the opportunity to work globally, and I worked with different people, wonderful people from different countries. And I learned a lot about what the policies are in each country. Every country is different. There's no one cookie cutter way to do things, and so you really get a good perspective about how to work in each individual region.
Excellent, Mauricio. All right, so let's talk about trends. What do you see happening in Latin America from the political, economical, or social standpoint that is relevant to our discussion today?
Without maybe getting into too many details, but I think politically, there, I think just the same as around the world, there's a lot of political unrest. There's a lot of different ideas, different ideologies that predominate with different governments and different administrations. I don't think it's any different than here in the United States. But I think what the most important thing in Latin America is the level of poverty and the level of angst, from different people. Not so much, about what are they going to do with their new governments, but economically, it's a very difficult situation. Politically, obviously, it's a difficult situation, but I think socially as well, there's a lot of division, and so that impacts many sectors of society in Latin America, and I have personally seen that divide. And so it's really a difficult situation. In some countries it's better, in other countries it's not. But there's a lot of unrest right now all over the world.
Yes, yes, agree. Well, you're bringing up an interesting point. I don't know if it is a curse or a blessing for Latin America, but you see a lot of populist governments in the region: Argentina, now Peru, of course, Venezuela, in Mexico, etc. In Colombia is about to have an election, and there's a populist candidate, very strong. So what this means is that you see a lot of government programs, including healthcare programs, that benefit the whole population in one way or another. So, as I said, I don't know if it is a curse or a blessing, but the trend in Latin America, or the historic behavior of the region, has been universal healthcare system for everybody.
Yeah.
So I guess that facilitates the access to the system, and the, increases the coverage, and also makes it attractive for companies to sell products to national healthcare systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And actually, in some countries, you will have the universal healthcare system, but then there are also private systems
Yes.
that
Hmm.
also work, and then also the social security healthcare systems that some countries have. And so there is a little bit of a, I'd say, benefit, to having to being able to afford into those programs. But for the most part, you're right. It's universal healthcare, and whether it's good or bad for the population, I'm sure that there are improvements that can be made, all around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, something that I've seen happening in the region, just happening in Colombia recently, is that recently, we're probably talking about 3, 4 years ago. It's that healthcare is a constitutional right. So you have the right as a Colombian citizen to have access to the healthcare system, and reimbursement is pretty much guaranteed for any product that you wanna that you need for your medical care. So that's certainly a trend that is increasing in the region.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So, Mauricio, let's speak about your practical experience, your field experience in the different countries in the region. Let's speak about Mexico, Colombia, and anywhere else in Latin America where you travel, um, and you were able to work and experience how to do business in each country.
Yeah, interestingly enough, the countries that I worked with the most were in Colombia, Argentina, Chile, and with Mexico, I did some work indirectly. Worked with a lot of great people. Didn't have the opportunity to go to Mexico physically, but I was there virtually quite a lot. Interestingly enough, in South America, the markets have been very diverse, especially in Colombia, where you have different medical systems that are working. Regulatory agencies are very different in Colombia, where if you want to bring a product there, you really do have to show the regulatory agencies uh, the benefits and the clinical trial outcomes for the product. And they, if everything looks good, they really they they approve things pretty quickly and without so much delay. In other countries, it might be a little bit different. Chile, for example, it's a pretty fast system. Argentina is a relatively fast system. I know Mexico is moderate. It could take a couple of months, but if things look good, they are pretty good. In Brazil, which is another market that I've worked in, is a little bit more delayed because they're just very careful about what is being brought to their population, and they want to make sure that they do a very detailed look at all the information that's being brought to them for the product. But for the most part, if everything looks good, they approve it too.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Mexico and Brazil are kind of the ugly countries in Latin America for regulatory affairs. Everybody's scared of these two
Yeah,
countries because it's time consuming, it's laborious, and expensive.
yeah,
And as you said, Colombia is pretty straightforward. In about 90 days, you can have your
yes,
high risk device approved. And for lower risk devices, class 1 and class 2 is automatic.
just
It's
about,
just a
yeah,
notification, yeah,
yep,
which is great.
yep,
And I was just recently uh, listening to a presentation from the director of the medical device committee in Arinvima in Colombia, and she was saying that they did benchmarking. And they compare Colombia to the rest of the countries in Latin America, and Colombia definitely has the fastest approval time, except for Chile. Right,
Chile, yeah, Chile
Chile
is,
is a different animal.
yeah,
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 Chile, you don't need regulatory approval; it's voluntary, which is interesting because it creates a kind of a market-driven regulatory system. In other words, if you don't have FDA or CE mark approval, the government doesn't care about it. The government will let you import the product. They won't.
Yeah,
They don't require you to file any applications or anything. You can, as long as you have a distributor, an importer, you should be able to sell the product tomorrow. It's just that the local doctors will not accept anything.
that's exactly what I was about ready to say. So, so that the regulatory part is very easy,
Yeah.
but trying to convince people to use new products is a challenge, and so
Yes, it's a
that's
challenge.
where a lot of training and education come in very handy. And sometimes if you convince the elder professor or the elder physician in the facility, and if that person has or he or she has a significant influence in the hospital or healthcare system, then other people will follow and adopt, but it
Yeah.
takes some time to get that to happen.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, no, nobody will risk the reputation. Any key opinion
Yes.
leader will carefully guard his or her reputation and will not risk his patients or her patients with Chinese or some products that do not have FDA and or CE mark approvals.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
yeah. So, Mauricio, let's speak about your past experience. In what capacity were you working in Latin America? If I remember correctly, you were a medical director also. You were in medical affairs.
Yeah, I was in medical affairs. I was the in global medical affairs actually at a diagnostics company. And so my job was essentially I was in charge of three disease states and in the product that was being used for those disease states. And so for example, sepsis and acute kidney injury were the two big ones I was working on. And so what I had to do was train people, talk to physicians, talk to different hospital systems about sepsis. Interestingly enough, we in the healthcare field, we everybody knows about sepsis, but at the same time, not very many people know about sepsis, and that's something that's very it's an infectious disease. It's a multi-systemic a problem that happens when as a result of an infection where the multiple organs can fail and it could be very deadly. But uh, the interesting thing was that there are different ideas about how to manage the septic patient. And so, but there really is no consensus. And so, my job really was to not only talk about the diagnostic tests that we had for use in sepsis, but really educate and train people about the management of sepsis. And the same thing was for acute kidney injury. So it's just very interesting to see different colleagues when you talk to them. There are those that that listen, that are very appreciative of the new and updated information, because many times in many countries, some of the information that they have is very old. So when you bring something new, they really do appreciate that. In other cases, there are some guys that are just set in their ways; they don't want to change, and that's okay. But for the most part, bringing new information has been quite a very interesting thing to experience, because people do appreciate that, and because they do genuinely want to improve patient lives. So that was my experience there.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Interesting. And you're bringing up another point, which is education, information, and all that. And you are in a unique position because you went to medical school in El Salvador,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. So it's a Central American country that not many people talk about. Now it's kind of in fashion with the president, right? Bukele.
I think you paused for a minute. Sorry.
Are you
Are you
there,
back? Yeah, you're
Mauricio?
back. You're back.
Okay, I'm here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you said,
Salvador is in fashion now because of the crypto
oh, the Bitcoin.
currency.
Yeah,
Yeah, Bitcoin is the first country in the world to adopt
yeah.
Bitcoin as a national currency, and the president is he's unique to say the least.
So yeah, he's some people like him, some people don't.
See, yeah, yeah, I'm sure you talk a lot about this with your family members and your friends from El Salvador. But the question I wanted to ask you, Mauricio, is how would you compare the medical education that you received and that doctors in general receive in a country like Salvador with the education of somebody who went to medical school in the United States.
Interestingly enough, I mean, it's a very good question. Uh, just as a point of reference for me, I mean, I went to medical school, over 20 years ago, and so the educational system, I'm sure, has changed since I was there. But what I will tell you is that, at least from my own experience in medical school, I mean, we used the same books, we used a lot of the same references. Our professors were very good, very knowledgeable about their specific specialties, and they taught very in a very anecdotal way, right? So you're really trained to be a physician in that country, which is, that's why you're there, right? But
Yeah,
I think what the difference between some Latin American countries, I know I can't speak for all Latin American countries, but just from my own experience, is that in the United States there is a little bit more of an academic focus than in Latin America, and where they here in the United States, we encourage medical students and residents and fellows to participate in clinical research, to test new innovative ideas, to test innovative products, and to participate in some of those activities. So, not only to encourage people to do something new, but maybe discover something better. And
yeah.
so I did not have that experience. And this was 20, 25 years ago. So I'm sure things may have already changed. But nonetheless, that's probably the biggest difference between the two regions.
Yes, yes. I think things have not changed that much, to be honest with you, because I hear that from a few other people, including my brother. My brother went to medical school in Colombia. And by the way, there's a significant difference. Medical school in Latin America is an undergrad degree,
Yeah, it
right?
is. Yeah.
So right after high school, you get into medical school and you spend 5, 7 years with the internship, and you also
Yes.
have to do social service.
Yes, that's true.
That's the same case in Salvador.
Yes, yeah, that's the case.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So social service, where you spend a year in a rural area helping people, which is
Yes.
great. I think that's a great experience for a very humbling experience, because regardless of your socioeconomic level, and you know that Latin America has very marked, very bold differences, you have to go through that.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, I've been, given gifts, from patients when I did my social service here. I've been given food, chickens,
Yes.
fruit,
Yeah.
cats, and I even had one lady offer me to marry her daughter. But I did not marry her. But
Yeah.
it's very humbling, that
Yeah.
people really do appreciate what you do for them. You get to see a side of society that you normally wouldn't get to see in the bigger cities, and so it really was a humbling experience. And you develop a high sense of compassion for
Yeah.
impoverished people. Definitely.
Yes, yes, yes. I heard that a lot from my father. He was a pneumologist and a radiologist, and my brother, who is a cardiologist. And you also mentioned that the way your professors teach, or taught in your case, is through anecdotes. And I also heard that from
Yeah,
my father and my brother. And the reason for that is probably because the way medicine is practiced in these countries is very practical. You
it
have to
is.
solve issues. You have to solve whatever case you have in front of you with little resources. You don't have the $20,000 piece of equipment that you have at your disposal on your desk in the United States as a doctor. So in Colombia, I heard all these stories about hospitals that they don't even have cotton, they don't even have alcohol, so you have to come up with
I've
creative
experienced that
solutions.
too. Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, and some of the things that we take for granted here in the United States, for example, is if you need a CT scan, they
Yeah,
just take you from the emergency
exactly.
room to the CT scan room.
Yeah, yeah,
In El Salvador, for example, if you needed a CT scan, they would put you in an ambulance, take you to a different location, and you would need to have $2,000 to get a CT scan, and so
yeah.
So that's another disparity that we see a lot there. That a lot of the technology that we have in the United States is not as available in other countries.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so Mauricio, let's talk about what you're doing today with Humacyte. I'm
Yes.
very, very intrigued with your company, with your product, with what you guys are doing. It's just fascinating. I mean, it sounds like science fiction. Let's talk about that, please.
Yeah, so Humacyte is a company in regenerative medicine, and we're actually defining a new category in regenerative medicine where we're capable of creating a universally implantable regenerative human tissue at a commercial scale for patients with life and limb threatening conditions. Currently, we're testing this product, the HAV or human acellular vessel in phase 3 clinical trials. It's not FDA approved just yet, but what we're doing is we're studying it in AV access or arteriovenous access for hemodialysis, in vascular trauma, and then also in peripheral arterial disease. In some phase 2 trials, and we have other applications that we're looking at right now, but the two main ones that we're working on right now are AV access and vascular trauma.
Okay,
And we're
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no,
Go ahead.
and we're working with the FDA to get to conclude these studies, and then bring the results to them and hopefully get FDA approval.
When do you think that will happen, the FDA approval?
Well, we don't know just yet. Because of the pandemic and because of several factors, there is no timetable right now. We would expect things maybe to look a little bit more concrete and within the next year or two. But
Okay,
when discussing with the FDA, and especially now because of the COVID pandemic, we do not know just yet. So I can't define a specific timetable.
sure, sure.
Mhm.
Do you have any plans for Latin America after you get FDA approval?
Well, the markets that we're looking at right now are the U.S. And then also with a, collaboration with one of the leaders in hemodialysis, Fresenius. We're also exploring the European markets. We don't have a timetable yet for Latin America, but that's not to say that that won't happen. But right now, we're really more focused on the U.S. and Europe.
Okay. And from what you hear from your friends or colleagues, are there is there a renewed interest with Latin America in light of the UMDR? Have you heard anything about that?
Not, I haven't heard about the UNDR, but what I do know is that there has been a significant interest from different companies, not just the pharma, but also biotech and diagnostics, to invest in Latin American countries because we have seen a lot of researchers and excellent physicians emerge from Latin America that nobody knows about,
That's
and,
true.
and a lot of experts. In the infectious disease area, for example, in cardiology, in nephrology, at least from my experience, have been phenomenal. And so now, the people are starting to realize that there's a lot of talent out there, and it's time to capture that.
Yes, yeah, you're bringing up another good point. I think what's happening in Latin America, Mauricio, is that the region for the past 20 years or so has changed, has matured, and the middle class is growing a lot,
Yeah.
and people have access. And with the internet, with globalization, people have access to global education. They can study anywhere now, and they can look at other countries as a destination for their university studies.
Right.
And a lot of Latin Americans, especially if you're from the middle upper class, and you have access to you have family members in the United States, and you have the money to travel and to get accepted into a university. I see more and more and more people, and I'm 50 years old. I've seen the transition.
Yeah.
You see more and more people traveling to the United States or Europe to study. Just yesterday, I interviewed the director of the biomedical program at the top university in Colombia, which is equivalent to Harvard in Colombia, and one of the top universities in Latin America, Universidad de los Andes. They have a fantastic biomedical program. And he just told me that one of his students got accepted at Stanford Biodesign. You
Wow.
know, that's an accomplishment. It's been the only Latin American and the only female accepted in this program. And I felt so proud. I'm like, wow, this is a big deal for us, I mean, for the region, because as you said, now you see more Latin Americans in the biotech, biopharma, medtech ecosystem, and that creates awareness, and they can help bring technologies or
Yeah.
research to the region.
Yeah, recently, I can't remember his name, but there is a physician from El Salvador who was who's going to be part of the space program in NASA. I can't remember if it's the mission to Mars or maybe it's the moon.
Nice.
I can't remember right now what it is, but I mean, it's a Salvadorian physician, and he
Wow.
and that's that's a big thing because
Yeah.
that you don't see that very
You
often.
don't see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, there's a lot of talent that's emerging from Latin America. The interesting thing is that a lot of talented people leave their countries of origin to come to the United States to train, and
Yeah.
because of the different circumstances, people decide to stay
Yeah.
in the United States, because there are more opportunities for for growth or whatnot. But but what we're seeing now is it's a little bit more competitive, especially in some countries like Colombia, where people do come back
Yeah.
and they have a very nice lifestyle.
Yes.
And just because they bring back what they learned from Europe or Canada or the United States as an example. So, I, yeah, and I know many people from El Salvador who go to South America and they come back and succeed. So there's you know the, there's a new wave of
A new
talent
wave.
coming from there. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And actually the system is set up for that. For you to go back to your country, there's a visa that is given to these physicians who come from overseas,
yeah,
including Latin America, which is the J
J1.
J1
Yeah,
visa. Yeah. So you are required to go back to your country for 2 years. It's
yeah,
called the home residency requirement,
yep,
because the spirit of the visa is that yes, you're welcome to the United States, you're welcome to our institutions, you're welcome to get education here, but you have to go back to your country
yeah.
for 2 years at least and apply what you learn, which is it's a good spirit. I mean, I like that.
It's a good incentive,
Yeah, it's a good incentive, but the thing is, if you want to stay here, it's difficult because you have to break that home requirement requirement. I mean, home requirement visa requirement, and it can be costly. I've seen a few cases of, where you have to go through attorneys and immigration court and stuff. Because if you get educated at Harvard, for example, the medical school, I mean, it's difficult to go back.
It
It's
really
really
is. Yeah.
unless you have a great incentive to go back to Latin America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. All right, Mauricio, we're getting close to the end of the show. Any final comments? Any morsels of wisdom? In other words, what would you say to the CEO of a medical device or biotech company uh, who is just starting to look at Latin America as a place to do clinical research or commercialization of medical technologies?
Yeah, I think that there's a tremendous opportunity in Latin America to do some clinical research, to bring new products, maybe sooner rather than later. Obviously, people want to test it in the United States and Europe first, but there's always a good opportunity in a population that's also sick in Latin America, that where you can also test a lot of products safely, of course. But I think that the most important thing is that there is also a huge opportunity to educate and train physicians on the updated technology, where they should not have to wait 5-10 years to learn about what we learned here last year. And so I think that being able to bring these products to and technology to Latin America is really going to help patient lives, and it's also going to help with research, because that encourages research in for physicians, for residents, and maybe they can invent the next new technology. And so why not bring it to them too?
Yes, yeah, well said. All right, Mauricio, thank you so much for being the show today. I really appreciate you accepting my invitation. I enjoyed our conversation. I'm sure listeners also did. So Have a great day.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and hello to everybody in Latin America.
All right, Mauricio. Ciao.
Take care. Bye bye.